I'm your host. I'm the head of growth here at RB2B. I handle a number of things. I interact with our creator community. I work with our SEO, our paid ads, our folks who run email marketing, and I also spin up my own content. So I'll be launching a show next year. We'll get to that, but without further ado, let's get rolling. So as I said, I'm Pete Crowley, head of growth here at RB2B. Our guest today, Michel and Pete, founder, CEO of ColdIQ. You may have seen his face before. He's a beast on LinkedIn and is very well known in this new world of cold outbound. Michel, why don't you say hello to the team and just give a brief rundown of ColdIQ and what it is you do?
For sure. Thanks, Pete. And hello to everyone here. So yeah, I'm the founder and CEO at ColdIQ. Essentially, we are a sales prospecting agency and we use the latest sales technologies to generate results for our clients. And so these include tools like RB2B, Instantly, Clay, Lemlist, and a lot more other tools. And essentially, this is what I'm going to be talking about today.
Yeah, so today we're really going to go through like the modern tech stack of a cold outbound, a modern cold outbound system. I have been doing this for about 10 years now. I've built sales teams. The way you build a outbound motion today is drastically different than it was 10 years ago, but like even just a few years ago, we've seen this rapid change in cold outbound. Now, before we move forward, we do want to drop our first poll. We're going to have 3 polls here during the show over the course of the hour. The other 2 will happen a bit later in the show. But John, if you want to tee up this first poll, what we want to do is just get an overview before we start of how people, what their perception or perspective is on traditional cold outbound. So our poll question is, excuse me, is traditional cold outbound dead? Yes, no, or it's not dead, but it's just changing a lot. So let's let those answers roll in briefly. We'll share the results, and then we'll use that as our launching pad here. There we go. We're at 56%. Right now we have, well, I'll wait until more people participate, but so I'll give some context to one of Adam's big storylines and sort of a pillar of beliefs is, outbound has really died in the past 18 months, maybe 2 years. John, you want to go ahead and share the results? I think we got a good sample size here. We have about 2/3 of folks who participated. I think this will be a good launching point. All right, so 73% of folks said it's not dead, it is just changing. So this is where, I don't know, I want to say we deviate, but we're going to expand on Adam's belief that outbound is drastically changing. It's not dead, but that's why Michel is here. And as just another little side note, if you watched the Jason Bay webinar we did a few weeks ago, where Jason was going through different sales strategies, you can think of this as the technological supplement or B side to that presentation. So I think we all agree, a lot of us agree, outbound is changing here. So what we're going to do, let's dive into some of the, kind of the evolving landscape of cold outreach. So why is it changing? Right. So I'll give my outlook. Michel, I would love for you to respond here. So for years, the outbound motion was really following this, what was dubbed the predictable revenue model. You would have your, SDRs, your BDRs, your cold outreach folks going out prospecting to cold leads and trying to book meetings with them in order to sell and kind of push them down the sales funnel. Over time, and as technology has advanced, we got more and more tools that allowed us to do this kind of cold outreach at a higher scale, whether that be cold calling, emailing, whatever it might be. All of this automation has drastically increased the amount of activities that a salesperson can do, but in turn also increased the amount of sales pitches that folks like me, you, probably most of the folks on this call get. So Michel, I would love your overview of the like kind of the evolving landscape of cold outreach, what do you see as the difference and sort of the importance of the modern tech stack today compared to what we were looking at about 5 years ago?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I completely agree with you. I think the main issue nowadays is the fact that you got more and more people sending some mass volume outreach. So what happens is the first thing is it's much more difficult to get into the main folder and to not land in spam. So what that means is that now you need to set up some secondary domains, send at a low volume, send some plain text email, and then warm up your email account. So you would use some tools like Lemlist or Instantly to warm up your email accounts. But then just the first phase of landing on the main inbox is not like extremely tricky. It really became very technical. So that's the first thing, right? But then the ones who do manage to get inside of the inbox are sending a lot of emails. So let's say you do land on the main inbox of any decision maker. Now they've got another 30, 40, 50, depends how big there are, emails in their inbox, which are unsolicited emails. They don't know each of the person sending them any email. There's no personalization, it's generic. They have like no reason to open this email. And so once again, now the challenge is that as people look at their mailbox, you need to have some way to stand out. So typically what you'll see is that lots of people don't include any profile picture, and most people have very spammy topic lines. So what you want to create is you want to create a pattern interrupt. That's not a tool, it's just in your sending tool, just try to think of something that you would write that would, make people want to click so that they open the email, right? And so this is the second challenge. And then the next thing is when they do open the email, most have some very unpersonalized pitch. Like once again, you're competing against a lot of pitch. As soon as people open the emails, they can see in the first 2 seconds that that's not relevant to them. And that's a template that has been sent to a lot of other people. So once again, what you want to do is you want to be sending something that's going to be personalized and relevant to your recipient. And I will say that the last thing is when you do send some emails to people and they don't know you, if what you were sending to them was remotely interesting, they will check you out. And so I guess this is where outbound is changing, in my opinion, is if I'm sending an email to someone and Adam is sending the same email, I think Adam will get a higher reply rate just for the fact that much more people know him. And so it's not just what you send, it's also who sends your emails. So in that regard, there is much more competition. Tools help a lot with that, but tools don't do the whole work for you.
Yeah, that's a huge, so a couple huge points like the inbox clutter. If you open a message, and we all do this, whether it's on LinkedIn, email, if I as soon as I get a sniff that it's a sales email, like I'm pretty much going to the next thing. If I can tell based on the subject line and the inbox preview text that it's a sales email, I'll just mark it as read. So to your point, Michelle, it's like how do you create how do you actually give somebody a sales pitch without them thinking it's a sales pitch? And a lot of this is your tone. Like, don't talk to them like a salesperson. Talk to them like your neighbor or your cousin. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but like think of how much more casually and sort of to the point you would be with somebody that you knew, as opposed to these emails that like, people are really trying to sound as professional as possible and provide as much context on their solution when in reality, all those things seem great in a vacuum, but they're actually causing people to just bypass your message. If it's 3 paragraphs and in the first sentence I know it's a sales email, I'm not reading the rest of those paragraphs, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah.
But
So
but the only way you would open the email is if I happen to catch you at the right time on some problem you actually have. Because it does happen sometimes that you receive an email and it's perfectly on point. An example for emails I received, I started publishing some videos on YouTube, and I think my first video was, shockingly bad edited. And so some guy is just saying, "Hey, watch your latest video on YouTube." So, he's sending me something related to some action I've done. So just like the entry the entry sentence makes it very relevant in the sense that I want to read it because it's someone who has watched my YouTube video, and then they're gonna make a comment about the fact that this was not rightly edited. Once again, this is something I know as well. And then the offer to edit, like this video and then send me, for example, the free output. And I think this kind of approaches work pretty well. Now, the whole challenge is finding the right time, the right timing, the right person, and the right relevancy point. And that's something that tools do help you with.
Perfect. Well, I think this is a good time then to dive into these actual tools. Should we dive into the next section? Michel's recommended tech stack. I think this would be, if you want to talk us through the different components of a great tech stack. So Michel and the folks at ColdIQ set up these tech stacks and these motions for businesses, similar to the folks viewing this. So I think touching on just the different like essential categories and some of the main the most used softwares, I guess, by you guys in those categories. Let's dive through there and talk about the most important categories. I think you have an image to share, right?
For sure, for sure. Let me
All
share
right.
my screen and then I can go right.
And then everybody, I am going to post this image. I'm going to do a little summary on LinkedIn post after this. I'll include the image as well. You can screenshot it here. I'm also going to include the image. And Michel also did on a little post as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
talk us through this.
Yeah, so I actually made a whole post where I lay out, every single piece of technology we use to run our agency. Just so you know, our agency makes over 2 million per year in revenue. So, like some of the tools could be expensive for smaller agencies, and also because we have a good amount of clients, we will sometimes use different tools for different clients. But, when it comes to sales technology, sales tools, outbound as a whole, I think the first and the starting point is always to think about data. So, you've got most standard B2B databases, and most of the databases, what they let you do is they let you filter someone based on their industry, their job title, the company size, and all of that stuff. And so typically you'd want to look at this data. And so here I showcase some tools such as Apollo that let you do that. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is the OG of sales data. So essentially most B2B databases actually copy their data, or like they scrape the data from LinkedIn and then they resell this data. And so this is typically a great starting point. So good data is the fundamental for everything. Once you've got good data, what you want is if you want either enrich this data further or verify that the data is good. And so, what we usually do inside of our company is we would pull some big lists from those platforms, such as either Apollo or LinkedIn. And then what we want to do is we want to find some context on the people we will be reaching out to. And so this is similar to the example I gave um, with the YouTube video is I can find a lot of examples, but what we would use is a tool like Clay. And what Clay will let us do is it will let us find some pieces of information that are not that easy to find on companies. So for example, what I can do is, let's say I wanted to sell LinkedIn ads to B2B. With Clay, I could look at how many ads they are running. And then because I know how many ads are running, then I can make a guess that they're probably spending some money on this. And so maybe I've got some recommendation to share. Or, for example, with Clay, they've got some integrations with tools such as BuildTreat. And so I'm able to see the technology that people are having on their websites. So for example, let's say that B2B wants to get some 6sense customers. What they can do is they can look at all the websites that install 6sense and they can say, hey guys, it looks like you've been using 6sense. 6sense is just identifying companies, or I don't know, the identification we do is much more efficient. Do you want to try us? And so essentially, this is what tools like Clay let you do, is once you have a list of people, it lets you gather some context around these people, and this actually builds a business case to send it in a very relevant way. And then once you've got all of this data, still inside of Clay, you can leverage some AI models, such as Claude and ChatGPT, and this will let you write some personalized line. I think Pete, you want to say something?
Yeah, let's pause on data for a second. So what you're saying, so Clay is really it's the hub where the different data sources are going to connect together so that you can enrich and really put together a usable, actionable lead list with all the different filters and sort of data points that you want. As an example, I remember in the past, this was at a different company, we were trying to estimate people's, we were going after e-commerce businesses, we were trying to target folks who had a certain volume of shipping spend, but we couldn't, like, there's no metrics. We needed like a proxy for that. And what we got to, we're like, all right, if you're an e-commerce business, we can, assume that if you have X number of visitors per month, that's translating into, Y number of sales. And we went that way, but we couldn't find website traffic existed in a different data source than all of our other contact info. We were using Zoom info for a while. We then switched over to Apollo. So Clay, you're saying really like what folks should do is figure out the best, what data points you need to actually filter out, who's in your ICP. Use Clay as that sort of aggregator, and then using Clay, you can zip it through the rest of this workflow.
Exactly, exactly. And so I like your example about traffic. I think it's very relevant to our B2B use case because obviously the more traffic a website has and the more people you can identify. And so inside of Clay, you would be able to connect to some other data sources such as SEMrush or even some Google APIs, and they give you some traffic information. And so now, thanks to this, you can actually use this information and say, I'm only gonna be contacting people who have at least 10,000 monthly visitors on their website, because otherwise they will not get as much value from my tool. And so this is really what Clay lets you do, and this is how you get lots more relevancy to your pitch.
Yeah. So for folks listening, if you're starting on the data phase, you don't have any of this workflow set up. Excuse me, there's a fly in the room. If you don't have any of the workflow set up, what I would recommend doing is trying to get, well, one, see what data points you actually need. Try to define your ICP if that's how early you are. See which data providers are going to provide which data points. Get really push for sample data. A lot of these data providers try to lock you into long-term contracts after seeing a very small amount of leads. So really try to maximize that trial, before you commit, before you move forward. So as Michel said, data is not, without data, nothing else matters. So that's point one. I'll stop and let you continue.
Exactly. And so once again, so we've got data, and then we will use this data to get additional context. And so now, and once we have the context, we can send all of this to a sales engagement platform. So here, for example, you see Lemlist instantly reach Smart Lead. And so what they let you do is they let you automate your outreach based on the data you've had. And so one thing I didn't mention is I talked about static data. So like one of the kind of data you have is the intent data that you can leverage straight away. So for example, if you want to do a campaign where we target a specific industry, then you can use B2B databases such as Apollo or LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Now, if you want to run some campaigns based on some intent, let's say someone who visited your website or someone who was looking at your profile, then you can use tools like either B2B for website visitor identification and Teamfluence, for example, for people who viewed your profile, and then straight away send them some automated outbound campaigns. But yeah, the whole idea is really that you mainly need a data source and a sales engagement platform. If you want to be fancy, use a tool like Clay so you have more relevance inside of on your message. And if you want to contact people who already seem to want to buy from you, you can use a platform like B2B that will identify this existing intent.
Awesome. Yeah, you can also, I mean, clay is the most malleable, not to add in a pun, but that's why they call it clay. It just, you can do so, there's so much customization, but on top of that, then you would have to subscribe to another platform, yada, yada. So is there a world where people can use their CRMs to sort of aggregate together and enrich this data and kind of be the central hub?
Yeah, actually, you can easily do that. So that's actually the lowest hanging fruit. If you already have a lot of data inside of your CRM, then this is where I would start, actually. is you've got lots of context because probably you have talked with some of these people. Some people were clients inside of previous companies. Some decided to not buy for timing reasons. And you can actually take this data, push it inside of Clay so that you have some context around the specific situations. Because sometimes maybe you've got a prospect that doesn't buy from you because they didn't have the budget and you have them on your CRM, if you push them to Clay, maybe what you'll see is that a few weeks ago they had a funding event. So now all of a sudden the objection, which was the lack of budget, doesn't exist anymore because now they've got plenty of money. And so now you know that it's the right time to reach out to them, right? And so this is the kind of thing where you can also use your CRM as a way to re-engage leads that either didn't convert or were close to converting.
Awesome. That's great. I'll let you continue on. Mohammed asked a question. Let's just go a little bit further into this workflow. And then Mohammed, we're going to get to your question. Let's just add a little more context before we get there because it's such a good question. So let's hop into, did you want to continue on to this workflow and talk about the kind of the different sales engagement, the difference between say a hey reach and the smart lead and just people trying to select, now that we have the data, what medium do we use to actually reach out to folks? I think the answer is probably multiple mediums, but I'll let you walk us through.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's you pick, right? You can decide to call them, you can send them a LinkedIn message, you can send them an email. If there are high quality leads, I would advise to do a mix of all channels just so that you make sure to maximize your chances of appearing in front of them. And so in that regard, if you want to do multi-channel outreach, you can use a tool like Lemlist because Lemlist lets you send messages via email on LinkedIn, and they also natively integrate with Oracle, which lets you dial and phone people. So like this would be the best tool for multi-channel outreach. Now, if you want to do email, and this is typically more for agencies, but also smaller companies that want to do higher volume of emails, then I would recommend Instantly. The reason for that is because Instantly, helps you a lot when it comes to creating these email accounts that that you need to set up to land in the main inbox. Like lots of the work they actually take care of for you. They actually have a new feature that they are dropping. I don't know if it's today or tomorrow, where they will have some pre-warmed up accounts so that you can send some emails straight away. Just so you know the whole context around warming email accounts is you warm up these accounts for 15 days so that you can send some emails and land in the main inbox. Now they will have a pre-warmed up account so you can just send emails straight away. But so anyways, and so this is what I would recommend. So yeah, in most cases, this will be the two I would recommend. Heritage is interesting for the ones that have a lot of LinkedIn accounts they want to do outreach with. And Smartly is also a great platform. They are usually, fighting with Instantly. At the moment, we've been using Instantly a bit more than Smartlead, but Smartlead is a very strong platform as well, which is why I've included them there.
Yeah, they're both great. I think both integrations are live, the Instantly Smart Read and the Hey Reach one for that matter. One of them might be coming soon, but yeah, so everybody has email. Not everybody checks their email or responds to sales emails, but everybody has email if you're attacking business profiles and going B2B. Not everybody uses LinkedIn. If your audience uses both LinkedIn and email, as Michel is saying, like try both and use both. You can put people in multiple sequences, hit them on multiple mediums. Maybe their one inbox box is super cluttered, but the other isn't. I know my email inbox, and I'll probably get some sales emails after I say this. My email inbox is much more open and regularly, kind of diligently checked than my inbox for LinkedIn. It's just a ton of sales emails, some other stuff. If someone wants to connect, I'll respond to those, but it's a little cluttered. So see where your audience is, use these multiple mediums, experiment with which ones work, and just to really, really highlight a point Michel was hitting home. Pick the modern sort of email. You need to do a few things. You need to have alternate domains because otherwise you're going to kill your domain. We don't send emails from rb2b.com, certainly not sales emails. And make sure that software has a built-in or a side product that is an email warmer. Those email warmers basically allow, or they distract these spam traps, if you will, from detecting you as sending spam. So let's think of a world where I'm sending cold emails from Pete at rb2b.net off our normal domain. What I'm doing when I'm warming up these domains, well, number one, for about 3 weeks, I'm not doing any sales emails. I'm just having this warming software basically send out seed emails and then engage with those back. That way, what Gmail or Outlook is seeing, they're seeing this new email um, that just got spun up, and it's like slowly starting to send more unique content, and people are opening and engaging with it as it appears to those services. After a certain amount of time, basically you can have like a reputation protect in these warmers where it's going to continue to send those seed emails. That way, when you're sending out your cold emails, not every single email is going to be identical, right? That's what sort of trips up a lot of these softwares nowadays. Email or Gmail, Outlook, of course, don't want a ton of sales emails going through. So use some of these warning tactics to get good deliverability. And yeah, I just wanted to add some color there. So I'll pause and let you continue. I'm really curious about so that kind of covers deliverability. Michel, I'm really curious about the AI models here. So
Yeah,
we've covered you get the data, you identify the visitors, you pick your medium, you warm up your addresses. Now, what am I saying to these people? We need personalized stuff. We need good content. If we do all the other things right, but we have bad content, the thing's not going to work. So
yeah.
would love the pros feedback or input on that.
Exactly. And so when it comes to AI in cold emails, there are two school of thoughts. So, people like to use AI to personalize the emails, and others like to use AI to find some relevant information about people at scale, just to enrich and qualify companies better. I'm on the second school of thought. I think that if you're going to be using some generic compliments, AI generated compliments, it's not going to be working as well as if you use AI for qualification. So I'm going to give an example of what that can look like. Is Clay, for example, has a product which is an AI agent. So they call it the Clay agent. And what happens is that this Clay agent will use either Claude or OpenAI to browse the web and find any kind of information. So it's really just a matter of, I can say, hey, can you go on each of the websites I've got on my list and let me know what's written on the about page, something like this. And then the AI agent will look for each website, look for the about page, and then give me the information, and it will tell me all the steps it took to find the information. And so if you understand how powerful this is, then you can actually do some very deep qualification. Because imagine you are selling some, I don't know, you are selling some sustainability solutions, sustainability products. And one thing you want to do is you want to only reach out to companies that seem to publicly showcase that they care about sustainability initiatives. And so one thing you could do is you could have an AI agent visit each website, each about us page, and look if the keywords, I don't know, ecology or sustainability are included in the page. And the AI agent will tell you, hey, like this information is indeed on the page. And so now that you have this information, you can tell them, hey guys, I'm reaching out to you because it does seem that you are into or that you run some sustainability initiatives, and now you've got your pitch that's very relevant to the fact that they do have some sustainability initiatives. And so like that's the main, I would say, way we use these AI models. But then another way is to actually use some context and then like to write some personalized lines. So for example, if I have the AI look at our B2B page, inside of a tool like Clay, for example, I can see all the information. And then what I could do is I could prompt the AI to write a personalized line to to Pete or Adam saying, "Hey Pete, I was browsing a B2B's website. Looks like you," and then like now the AI would autocomplete my sentence saying you identify visitors on people's websites. That's great because we actually built something that helps with blah blah blah. And so that's another way to use AI. There's lots of use cases. I would say use it more for qualification than for personalization, but we do see that personalization work also. So I'm not hearing you anymore, I think.
I was on mute. I apologize. Muhammad just asked a great question or made a good comment about social listening, finding news based on different keywords, companies, for like phrases. Are there social listening tools that you have in this workflow? Or is that something that you use for your clients, or do you more go on this AI model route where you're having it do the digging for you?
Yeah, typically we'll have the AI do that. So, but I think it's a great idea. This is something we've been thinking of doing. But essentially, if I want to find specific news, I can just ask the AI to tell me for each company in my list, if there are some recent news around a specific topic, then it gives me the information. Then I can use AI to summarize the news, and then I can tell companies that I'm reaching out to them because of said news. So I didn't need to add a social listening tool to my tool stack just yet.
Okay, cool. That's great. And I mean, these AIs, too, I know when ChatGPT came out, it was like, oh, I don't know anything after 2021, whatever it is. Nowadays, it can do a lot more web searching. It continues to improve day by day, especially the new 4.0. I've not used Claude, but the new 4.0 is pretty outrageous. So for folks doing that, I mean, that is such a core piece of this. I almost want it to be like shimmering in gold, the AI models section of this. I just feel like it's such a key when it comes to actually sending it a good volume. I mean, I know prior to AI, I ran some ABM, really, I mean, maybe not textbook ABM, but really high intent campaigns. And sometimes it would take 20 minutes to get an email out. So with this current stack, what does that volume look like? So you're doing personalization sort of at scale. So are we getting the volume of high volume outreach, but with the personalization? I mean, what does that volume look like?
That's the whole idea. I mean, we're actually able to send thousands of emails every day for clients, those emails being personalized. Now, I don't think volume is always the best strategy to go for, but if you want to go for volume while being personalized and relevant, this is a possibility. I would just argue that the more broad you go, the easier it will be to have a volume heavy approach. And it's also going to be much more tricky to be relevant in every email you send. So that's the only downside to it. But to be completely honest, yeah, we have no trouble sending thousands of emails per day.
Yeah, and I think a good maybe thing for folks to look at as if you're new to this type of workflow and you're trying to figure out volume, personalization, how much time you should spend per email, things like that. And this fly is, I don't know if you guys can see this, but he's just going nuts. I think on my face. Anyway, I think a good thing to try to just get an estimate on is like, what is my total addressable market? I've talked to RB2B users who have a TAM of like 800 folks. So if I have 800 possible companies that I'm trying to sell to, I don't need this super high volume approach. On the other side of the spectrum, if I have a somewhat commoditized product and huge TAM, like it might be worth that higher volume approach. So I think when you're thinking about you being any member of our audience, how to run this, remember to contextualize it with your business. Who's my persona? What is their current problem awareness? What's my total addressable market? All of those components kind of help you understand how to attack this. Where do they interact? Are they on LinkedIn? Or so just some variables to keep in mind as you try to contextualize this and actually apply it to your business.
Yeah,
All right. We have
100%.
RB2B on visitor identification. I think we've gone through sales engagement. Let me see where we're at here. So I know we do want to do a little workflow showcase and actually show this in action. Did you want to wrap up on the tech stack before we go over there? I'll let you move along how you would like.
Yeah, no, I think we've talked enough about the sales stack. It's lots of theory, so
Let's do
maybe
it. Let's do some, yeah.
to show it,
Let's do a
to
showcase.
show
Let's
it in.
show people it in action. This is going to be great. I'm extra excited for this. This is Michel and I talked about the workflow showcase, but in order to preserve excitement, I have not seen it yet either. So we're all seeing this for the first time together. So all my questions
Yeah.
will be genuine for folks knowing.
Yeah. So can you see the new window I have open?
Yes.
Nice. So we were talking about Clay in the latest, I mean in the sales stack. So this is what Clay looks like. And this table is a table on which I get data, and the tool that feeds me the data is Airbnb. So I don't think I need to reintroduce what Airbnb does, uh, but yeah, essentially it's really identifying people on the page. And so what I get once Airbnb identifies people is all of this data inside of this table. And so what I can see is I can see what page they visited. So here I can see they visited my AI sales tools page. I can see they visited a page where it was Clay versus Apollo, or they visited our home page. So I've got all of this data. And then I also get a bunch more data, such as the first name, the last name, the full name for each person, the company name, their job title, and so on and so on and so on. And so what I'm doing with this is based on which page people visited and based on who they are as a company, I'm gonna send them to a separate engagement sequence. And so here, as you see, I've cleaned the company name as a starting point. And then Airbnb gives me lots of data, but then I'm cleaning and I'm finding the missing data. So for example, as you can see here, for each person that visited my website, I get their websites, but for some it was missing. So, with Clay, I found a way to find their website. And this is an actual use of the AI agent. So that's what I was talking about, is I'm just saying, look at all the experiences from this person on LinkedIn, and then give me the domain of the company, which is most likely their current full-time job. And then the model goes and find the data. And what's interesting is here, it explains you how it found the data. So like you see the results is brookdale.com. And then here it says, Cynthia, most likely full-time job before retirement. She retired, was a home health therapist at Brookdale Senior Living Communities. So the company domain for this organization is brookdale.com. And then it tells you how confident it is on the result. We've got the same thing for each. So here, once again, the domain fund from this person. And so it currently indicates that this is the official website. So we've got all of these missing websites. And also Airbnb gives me the email addresses of each person. Now, once again, Airbnb gives me a lot of email address, but what I want to do is I want to verify those email addresses and then use my own enrichment tools to make sure that I have as many email addresses as possible. So I do an email verification, and for all the email addresses that Airbnb couldn't find or that were not uh, good according to my verification tool, then I will do what we call a waterfall enrichment. And what the waterfall enrichment is essentially using 5 different tools to find an email address. So here, what you see here is that if I didn't have the email address, I have this tool called Prospeo that will go and try to find the email address. If Prospeo doesn't find the email address, this second tool called Lead Magic will go and try to find it. If both the first tools don't find the email address, this next tool Datagma will go and look for it, and so on and so on and so on. So in the end, I'm left with a list of verified email addresses. I've got all of the domains for each person that visited my website. And now this is where the enrichment starts. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to have some context as to how big the company is. So if someone visits my website and they are working, like they are an important person in a big company, I'm going to address them differently than if they are, someone random in a smaller company, just because it's more or less interesting in terms of business for me. So I've got all of these companies that I enrich. I get the company size, I get the company description, and a lot of other things. And this is where I use the AI models for qualification. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm classifying the how great the company is for me and how great the person is for me based on some criteria that I give the AI. So here it's really as simple as as writing a prompt inside of GPT-4o. And here I'm just laying out the context where I'm telling to AI, hey, you're a professional cold emailer for ColdIQ. Your task is to determine if a target company could be a good fit for our services. And then I'm giving a lot of the information that we had from before. So the company name, the domain, the industry, and so on. And then I'm giving some criteria. So I'm saying for a company to be a tier 2 prospect, the company must meet the following criteria. And I'm saying it must be a B2B company. It should have a product or service that can be sold online. The product or service should have a high LTV and some other criterias. And for example, for tier 1 prospects, I'm saying they should be B2B software companies with a headcount of over 40, just because we've seen that for SaaS companies, we were able to generate some great results. Then we've got some other classification prompts for tier 3 and unqualified companies. And so here, what you can see is that for each person that visited my website, AI went and looked at their information and qualified them for me. So you see tier 1, tier 2, unqualified, tier 3, tier 2. And so what happens now is that I'm going to be able to only talk with people who are interesting to me. But what I did for companies, I'm going to do the exact same thing for people. Because once again, if someone is a CEO, it's probably more interesting to me that if the person is just an entry-level worker. And so here is the same idea. We are writing a prompt where we are asking the AI to look at the job title of the people, and we're saying, if the person is a CEO, COO, CRO, or a head of RevOps, head of growth, whatever it is, then we want them to be tier 1. And if there are junior GTM roles, we want them to be tier 2, and so on and so on. And so now I have a classification criteria for each person based on their job title. And then I do a quick formula where essentially I'm just trying to match the tier they were at for the company and as a person. And so essentially what happens is that if there are at least tier 2 in each category, then I consider that they are qualified for outreach. And so it ticks this box. And if the box is not ticked, then I don't continue the enrichment and they will not be receiving a message from me. And so this was the qualification part using AI. Now, now this is when we start reaching out to companies. And so the next thing we do is for all the companies that were qualified, what we want to do is instead of just reaching out to the person who visited the website, we want to reach out to a few people in the company. So here we have Clay that plugs straight to Apollo. And what it will do is like for each person, it will go and find someone who was a VP of sales, a head of sales, or a chief sales officer in the same company. So a colleague of them who is in a department that's relevant to us. And so it just goes and looked at these locations. And here it says, oh, I found one person, I found 0 people, I found 2 people. So it really depends on companies. And then this is now where we start reaching out to them. And essentially what we do here, and I'm going to show the sales engagement platforms, is on the one hand, we automatically send a connection request to all the people who were qualified for outreach based on the enrichment criteria we set, plus their colleagues. So here you can see we've got these people added to a campaign that I'm going to showcase right after. And so we've got 1, 2, 3 people from the same company being added in a campaign. And here the campaign is this campaign where actually this just sends a connection request. And then 2 days later, we send them a quick connection message. And for this, we purposefully kept it extremely simple because the fact that they were visiting our website let us know that they are familiar to us. So we don't want to hard pitch them because we are pushing a lot of content on LinkedIn. And so something we noticed is people, when they are ready, tend to come to us, but sometimes they just need a little nudge to decide that they want to reach out to us. And so, yeah, and so we've got all of these people that we send connection requests to automatically. And then the next step, if you remember in the beginning, I was saying Airbnb lets me know on which page people were. So whether they were on my tools pages or my home page or whatever it is. And so, if you look at the tools page or if you look at the home page, you'll see these pages are very different. So, this tools page is essentially all those platforms. So you see B2B is here in the AI visitor identification category. And so if someone is looking at this page, I think they have a different use case as if they are looking at this page. And so based on the page they were on, I'm gonna want to send them a separate message, which is the reason why I'm separating campaigns. And so here I'm adding some condition where essentially I'm saying, if the person visited a page that is the tools page, then send them in the tools campaign. And and now we can have a look at what happened inside of the tools campaign. But essentially, the tools campaign is just us mentioning, hey, we saw you were looking at our sales tools list, and so I wanted to reach out to offer a helping hand in answering any questions you may have about GTM, AI, sales text, or also for company name, and blah blah blah. We have a few different variations, but the whole idea is that based on which page they were on, we're gonna send them to a separate campaign. And this is essentially how the whole system works with several variations for each page. Because as you see, we've got a different campaign for the homepage, for the accelerator, for the newsletter, and for our blog.
Now, if you're multi-threading, and that person, so the person that you enrich to grab other, say, go-to-market leaders in your case, or whoever our audience's ICP would be, you're enriching them. And adding more folks from that team, but those people didn't necessarily visit the website. So how
No.
do you know what language to send to them? Does does the AI bucket them based on their persona, or how does that work?
No, on this one, we are just banking on the fact that people inside of companies that just talk to each other. And so it's just a simple connection request. Because for the most part, our biggest assumption is that most people who land on our website will be familiar with our LinkedIn content because LinkedIn is one of our highest traffic source. And so if their colleagues have been engaging with our post, there is a high likelihood that they have seen our post as well. So this is just theory. But because it's just theory and we cannot prove that, we just go extremely soft. It's just send you a connection request and then just send you a message saying, hey, if you need some help around this topic that could be a topic that's interesting to you because of the fact that it seems to be relevant to your colleague, then just don't hesitate to reach out to me. But this is where it stops because then I'm just gonna let the content do the selling for me. Because if I'm connecting to them and I know I have sent them a DM on LinkedIn, I know there is a high likelihood they will be exposed to my daily content on LinkedIn. And at that point, maybe then they will convert.
I really love that. That's so interesting because it makes so much sense when you after you explain it, because it's like you have a representative at the business that's already given you a signal, that they have some type of problem, assuming they went to one of those sub pages, right? That's off the homepage. And then you're basically just saying, look, chances are, if this is really a need for this company and a problem, they're all talking about the same problem. It's probably unlikely, and I mean, maybe this would be a case specific thing, but like it's unlikely that each person at the company has a different problem that you can solve, which would be great because then you can you'll probably land a big contract. But most of the time, organizations are looking to solve pretty precise problems, and I really like the way you're attacking that. Now, on the LinkedIn front, I want to emphasize my passion for having a LinkedIn connection be the first of any outreach campaign, assuming your audience is somewhat on LinkedIn. My theory here is like if they've been to your website, they have brand awareness, or if they haven't, like you want a representative of the company to be attached to the company itself. Then it feels like not that you're buying from a company or interacting with a company, but you're interacting with this problem solver, this representative of the company, and it's a more personal connection. Now, when you go to reach out to them, whether it be via email or LinkedIn, or you give them a call, they not only have brand awareness, they have personal awareness. They know who you are as a person. So the response rate, if you kind of deliver that personal awareness prior to this cold engagement, I've seen those response rates go up dramatically. And it seems to be a common tactic, and you of course are using it for good reason as well. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think if you post on LinkedIn, then it's a no-brainer. It's you should because this is where I'm at. The reason why we are soft pitching them and starting with the LinkedIn connection request in a good amount of cases is because I'd rather have my sales team talk to someone who has been exposed to my content for a month instead of having them, having them talk to the prospect with no context. Because I know that if they have been exposed to the content for a month, the content did part of the selling. And so for my sales guys, when they are talking with those prospects, it's just much easier. And so I'd rather have this lag in time, but just extremely qualified prospects than just trying to book every meeting we can. And I just realize that it's tough to close companies.
yeah, and just to kind of close loop on something you had mentioned earlier in the show. So um it doesn't have to be the salesperson who's representing the company when it comes to engaging. So, as an example, we do this at our B2B. We're very much founder led. I will send email campaigns from Adam, or we'll have email campaigns go out through Adam, and Adam will really be like the kind of the figurehead of the company. He'll have a lot of content that goes out that builds trust for folks. That way, when people think about retention in our B2B, they see they think about a trusted source who tells it like it is and isn't going to give them the runaround basically, and that really translates to the tone of the conversations that we have with folks here. So I'd like to really love that point at the end of like using the content and sort of other marketing materials and channels to build trust with your audience from sort of a top of funnel perspective. Somebody joined the webinar a few weeks ago with Adam and said that at any given moment, you're only 5% of your audience is in market to buy. So let's always remember that. Like, this is a world of nurturing, building awareness, building trust over the long term. I think the old style of outbound was hit them cold, give them a quick pitch, see if they'll buy. If they don't, move on and try again in 6 months. Now it's much more of a nurturing world of delivering value before you actually you know, request or whatever, give them the pitch. Um,
Yeah.
this has been awesome. We're going to open up to Q&A in just a second. But Michel and I yesterday were talking about we're going to release a playbook in the next couple of weeks here. And our B2B in general will be both with partners like Michel, ourselves, and we're going to be releasing a ton of playbooks. So we're going to launch a poll. I'm just curious what types of playbooks you would like to see. If you could just boil it down to one answer, whichever category you fit in best. So which playbooks do you want to see? Cold outbound for SaaS, marketing for SaaS. What I mean by marketing is, do you want playbooks to see how other data points and can help our B2B data, whatever it might be, can help boost your SEO, your paid ads efforts, your influencer marketing. So that's what I mean by marketing. Cold outreach, pretty self-explanatory. And then if you are doing e-commerce, manufacturing, whatever it might be, that's what I mean by other industries. So feel free to drop those in. We got about a quarter, 25% of people have answered so far. In the meantime, let's keep this poll up for a bit. I would love to get this participation rate a bit higher. Let's start with the Q&A. We got a few minutes left. Let's drop in some questions, guys. And if you drop something in before, I'll scroll up while we're doing that. Mohammed asked a great question. So how can a small agency use these integrations in Clay to find their ICPs with less than $1,000? So you showed us a ton of great, softwares and sort of tech tools that are connected to that Clay table. But of course, there's a cost incurred as you add in more of these tech tools. So do you have a starting place for folks when it comes to adding in these tech tools?
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to go around this. So the first one is you can actually build a sales stack for under 1K per month. For example, with Clay, if you go to the 349 per month plan, then you can have access to the API. And so you can get some subscriptions to tools like Prospeo, Apollo, LinkedIn Sales Nav, and most of them will be around the 100 per month. But what I would advise you to do, which is something that, like a kind of hack, is just have clients pay for the tool. So, the pitch is just to tell them, hey guys, this tool is so great. You'll want to use it, whether you want to work with us or not work with us. And so just send them the link to the tool, get a kickback, if you talk with, say, Clay or probably B2B and some other tools, they will give you an affiliate referral fee. And so you have clients pay for the tool. And so on top of the money you're gonna make from the actual um from the actual contract with them, you can add some additional recurring revenue by recommending the tools and using your own link. And this is what something I've seen a lot of agencies do. And most of the tools, most of the software companies, they will be extremely grateful for you if you do that, because for them, what's most interesting is building some monthly recurring revenue from all of these different platforms. And it does add up because something sometimes that can happen is this happened to us. One client can leave you just because obviously when it's a done for you service, the cost can be in the thousands, while if they just have to pay for B2B, it's just gonna be hundreds. But what's cool then is that once they left you, you're still making some money from them, despite the fact that they are no longer your clients. So it's your small revenge somehow.
Nice. That's
For sure,
great.
Angela.
So a couple of more questions. Henry asked tips on doing outreach for ecom. And Henry, I assume you mean like B2B ecom. Do you have any ecom folks in ColdIQ? Do you focus mostly on SaaS companies?
Yeah, no, because we have some clients who sell to e-commerce. I can tell you already, e-commerce is really one of the most difficult niche to work. I think, it's almost like Cold Outbound has been, built. It's like almost like online businesses has been built on the back of e-commerce. It's like you've got all of these e-commerce stores that started selling some products online, and then lots of people just started thinking, how can I serve e-commerce? And then, just some SaaS started selling to some other SaaS selling to e-commerce, but it's almost like the root of all of this is e-com. When you think of Amazon, it's some just huge e-com platform. And so yeah, I will say that e-commerce is extremely tricky to sell to. Now it really depends on what you are selling. It's difficult to give you more insights without more context. But I will say try to go multi-channel, try to be very personalized and relevant, and just know that plenty of other people are sending some speech. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
this looks like a lot of folks are saying that ecom's difficult, basically. I think I mean, look, all of this is difficult, right? I think that's the thing to keep in mind too, like, Michel, when he onboards a new client, like there's an onboarding process where he's gotta really dial things in. Anytime we onboard a new agency for any channel experiment, there's that ramp up process. These things are really tough. I think a huge highlight of Michel's is like all of the different components, and we'll share this recording tomorrow. It'll be on YouTube. It'll also be live on our B2B Academy, academy.rb2b.com. I'll drop the link here. And I invite you to watch this again. I'm going to share a rundown too on LinkedIn. Please feel free to continue the discussion in there. I'll tag Michel so he can dive into that comment section as well. So if we didn't get to your question, let's dive into that comment section of my post. I'll drop it in about an hour here. Michel, thank you so much, man. This is like, I mean, the favorite episode I've certainly ever hosted. I think this is going to be a killer recording, and it's going to go a long way. I'm going to be launching a show next year. You will be on my guest list. I hope you'll attend. That would be amazing.
for sure.
But this was so fantastic, guys. Next week we have Ryan Tooley. He's the founder of Pitch Lane. He's going to take us through a couple of things, really a modern lead magnet. We have this interesting lead magnet we're going to show you to help identify folks coming in, and then he's going to show us how to do video prospecting at scale using multiple screens and variables. So it's going to be a great episode if you're interested in diving into a specific tactic of cold outreach. Stick around for next week. And let's continue the convo on LinkedIn. Everybody, thank you for attending. Again, the recording will be up tomorrow. Michel, thank you so much, man. We will have you back.
Sure.
Absolutely. You're the man. We
For
love
sure.
this
Ciao,
episode.
ciao.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me, Pete. Ciao, ciao, guys. Have a nice one. Bye bye.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.